In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the in-class assignment that we didn't have enough time for last time, for many of you, and I'll just go through it for you so you can see what I wanted exactly. And this will be helpful for the homework, which is going to be graded. It'll help you to do as well as you can, I hope. So I'll go through it. This is the file. This was on Blackboard, and so make sure you have this open as you're following along. It'll be helpful for you. So the question starts off by saying, it is sometimes stated that attitudes about abortion are very liberal in this country. As a social scientist, you would like to find out whether this claim is true. The GSS dataset contains 7 variables on this topic, but for this problem, choose abortion for any reason. And if you looked at the homework already, you know that you're going to be looking at more of the abortion variables for the homework assignment. So this will be part of that, basically. So this will be getting you a little bit along the way. So the GSS dataset, what do I mean by that? If you forget, you can just go to our course website, tinyurl.com, wbu-stats-2014, enter. And this is our SkyDrive here. So in this root directory, which is going to come up here, is our codebook and our data. So you're also going to need to download these. For all of the homeworks, you're going to need to be using the GSS data and the GSS codebook. So it's good just to have them downloaded now so that you can have them always ready for class and for homework assignments. So go ahead and download those. And some of the things I'm discussing today were covered in these lectures here, in these slides. And I also did a full example. You can follow along with that one as well to match it up with what I'm doing here. In this Excel spreadsheet, all the way on the right, the rightmost worksheet has an example of self-employment data. But back to this assignment here. So the first step is to open a fresh Excel workbook. Okay, so this is the GSS data file, which I just asked you to make sure you had ready. And the way to open a new workbook, you just go File, New. And you can either click Create, it's just going to create one of these, or you can just double click. All you want is a blank workbook. Okay. So here's my blank workbook, so step 1 is done. The second step says to put the data for ABANY into the workbook. You can find the data in the GSS data file. So here's that GSS data file, and the instruction I'm giving you here, the suggestion, is that you can find it by pressing Control F. Now, why do I say that? This data file has, like 100 variables, right? So you'd be looking in 100 different to try to find that ABANY. Where is it? It would take a long time. So you can actually do, excuse me, you can actually type in Control F, the Control key, hold it in, and then hit F, and then just type in ABANY. You can hit Enter because this is highlighted, or you can click on it, hit Enter, and it's going to jump over to that next instance of that in the whole entire file. Okay, and it only shows up once because there's only one variable with that name. Okay, so I found it. That step's done. Now I'm saying select the data, which I can either do this, right? But we don't want to do that. We know that we can select the whole entire column by clicking on the letters at the top. Okay, so it's selected. And I say to hit Control C. I'm holding in Control, and I'm hitting C. And it's giving me this glowing box around this, which means that it's been copied. So now what I want to do is I want to paste it into the other workbook. So I'm going to go to that brand new workbook here, and I'm in the top left cell, and I'm going to hit Control V. And that's going to paste the data for me. So that's all done. So step 2 is finished. Now step 3 is really the meat of the assignment. So like we did in class, use Excel to create a table of the relative frequency distribution. Now why am I asking you to do that? Because this right here is a mess. Okay, it's a bunch of numbers, and what we want to do is we want to make this somewhat easy to understand. Okay, we want to present this in a much more intelligible way. So using a relative frequency distribution, like saying the percentage of people that fall in a particular category, is going to be super useful to make this easy for someone to understand. So before we do that though, we're actually going to have to look, as I say in the next step, at what these labels are, because this, what do these things mean? What is this variable? What are these 1s and 0s and 8s and 9s? What does all this mean? Okay. So now I'm going to go to the GSS codebook. Okay, so when you open up that file, the GSS 2012 codebook on the SkyDrive, it comes up with something like this. And as I said in the first day of lecture, that what this is showing you, it's showing you all of the variables, and it's giving you a brief summary. And this is just a table of contents here. Okay, so there's two sections. There's a table of contents, and then there's the actual contents. So just like the table of contents for a book, you're going to have like your chapter title, and then you're going to have the page at which that chapter is on. Okay. So we're looking for ABANY. So just like in Excel, you can hit Control F and type in ABANY, and the box that comes up, and you can see that it's going to show up twice, which is what we would expect, because it's going to show up in the table of contents right here, and it's also going to show up on the page which this table of contents is linking to. So in this case, if I go to the right here, I can see that this is going to be on page 33. So if I click here, this is going to take me in this document to page 33. And here's my variable right here. So I'll close this here so you can get a better look at this. I'll zoom in. So ABANY. What does this mean? Abortion if woman wants for any reason. Okay, so what the codebook is telling you, it's telling you a couple things. First, it's telling you the actual question that was asked. This question was asked to thousands of people. Okay, the same exact question was asked to thousands of people. And the second thing it's giving you is the codes for the responses, how this was input into the computer. Okay, so let's look at each one of these in turn. So first, the question. Please tell me whether or not you think it should be possible for a pregnant woman to obtain a legal abortion if the woman wants it for any reason. And the possible answers are yes or no. Okay, so yes, a woman should be able to obtain a legal abortion for any reason, and 2, no, she should not be able to obtain a legal abortion for any reason. Now, a common error in this is to actually not read the question and just to say abortion, yes, no. So, but it's pretty clear that if a woman wants an abortion for any reason, should she be able to have it? Should it be possible? A common mistake is to not read the question and assume that the question is actually something else. For example, did you have an abortion? But that doesn't make any sense, because these questions are asked of both men and women, and most men that I know have not had an abortion. Most women as well. So if you misinterpret these, have you had an abortion, this is a very polarized question. You're going to get roughly 50% of the population either way. Okay, so has 50% of the population had an abortion? Most likely not. So that may be another question that they would ask. Okay, you can find that in other surveys. This question is just asking, should it be possible for a pregnant woman to obtain a legal abortion? Yes or no? Now what this is telling you right here, the missing data codes, is telling you what the missing data is. And as I say in the next step there, I say do not include missing data. Okay, so 0 means inapplicable, the question was not asked of the particular person for various reasons. And 8 was the person said, I don't know, they didn't have any opinion. And 9 is they did not answer, no answer. Okay, so these are very rare if you actually look at them. But for this assignment, I'm saying, don't even bother looking at these. And definitely don't include this in your analysis, because if the question wasn't asked of the person, your analysis will be kind of funky if you're looking at it. Your total, including the people who weren't asked the question, you're going to have numbers that are kind of funky. So all I'm telling you is exclude the missing data. All you're interested in is the 1s and the 2s. So 1 is yes, 2 is no. So in order to construct our table, which is the meat of this part, the relative frequency distribution, we're first going to have to type out our labels, right? So there was 1 was yes, and 2 was no. Okay, we're looking pretty good so far. I'm just going to move this a little over to the left a little more, so it's so we can make sure that we have enough room for this table as it grows to the right. So 1 is yes and 2 is no. Just making sure. I'll go back here. So 1 is yes, 2 is no. Okay. So all of the examples I did in class had this step already done, but all you're doing is you're just transferring 1 is yes, 2 is no. You're just putting that into Excel. Okay. Now what you want to do, you want to know how many of these people. Recall that there's Control-Shift down, 1,974 people. So 1975 minus 1, Control up, which is the header, the name of the variable. So 1,974 people here. You don't want to go through each of these and manually count them. You want a formula. You want the computer to do it for you. And the way to count them all up, to count the number of people in this data set that said yes, to count the number of people who said no, you just use the COUNTIF function. So I'm just going to type in equals COUNTIF, and as it says here, it counts the number of cells within a range that meet the given condition. So it's counting if it meets some condition. Open parentheses. Okay, so it's saying first put in the range. What's your data? Well, my data is right over here. Right? So this is my data. So I have to input the references to my data, which I can do by just clicking on it. I can click on the 1, and I can hit Control-Shift down, and it selected all of those people. You can see right here, A2 to A1975. It's got all of those 1,974 people. Okay. So the range is done. We've got the data. So I'll go back up here. And the next step, it says enter the criteria. So put in the comma, and now input the criteria. So I'm counting up all of the what in this data range. I'm counting up all of the ones, right? The ones mean yes. So the 1 is just C5, 1. So I could either have typed C5 or I can just click on it. I think clicking is easier. Ending parenthesis. Now, at this point, a really important detail is that Excel by default uses relative formulas. What do I mean by relative formulas? That means that if I were to copy this down, it would, so if I hit F2 to go inside of this cell, you can see it's highlighted, it's color-coded. So blue is the range, and green is the condition, the criteria. So this formula is relative. So if I were to copy this formula down, everything over here would shift down. It would shift the range down 1, and it would shift the criteria down 1. I want the criteria to shift down, but I don't want the range to shift down. So in order to lock in the range, I highlight it here. So this is my range, remember, so I've highlighted it here. And now I'm going to hit the F4 key all the way at the top of my keyboard, F4. There it is. And these dollar signs mean that the column is locked in and that the row is locked in. The column is locked in, the row is locked in. So when I copy this formula, I'll hit enter now. When I copy this formula down, it's going to leave the criteria as a relative reference, but it's going to lock in this absolute reference. Okay. So remember, to copy down, I can double click, it'll copy down, or I'll delete that. I can go to the little black box. The little black box is key, this little thing right here. Okay. And when I go over that, I can either double click, or I can click on it and drag down. Okay, like that. Or I could just Control C, down, Control V. All of them do the same exact thing. Okay. So now what this is telling us, we can look now. This is what we had before, the green box, the blue box. Enter F2 to look inside of the cell. Ah, the green box moved down. It's counting up the number of 2's in the range, and the range did not move down. Okay. Great. That is what we wanted. So now, if you recall, we can add up these frequencies for the total, which the total number of cases is n. We can type in equals sum, open parentheses, and it says the numbers. I can just select them like that, close parentheses, enter. So this is just adding up these numbers. Another way of doing that, delete, is to just hit Alt equals, and it automatically sums up the adjacent numbers. So either one is going to do the same thing. Again, the formula is going to be the same. It's just a shortcut, which is pretty useful. So this is the frequencies. And what we wanted is the relative frequencies, so the percentages. And I'll resize these. Just double click, it'll auto size for you to fit the width of the maximum width of the cell there, the percentage versus the frequency, it'll fit it. Now what I want, this is a little difficult to understand. There's 554 people who said yes out of the 1248, but a percentage is a lot easier to understand. So that's what we're going to create. So if you recall from lecture, the formula for a percentage is just the total and the category. So this example here is 130 divided by the total number of cases. Okay, so the number in the category, frequency, divided by the total number of cases. So F over N. So going back to our example for abortion, the way that we do F over N is with a formula, right? So I can hit equals, and I can click on this cell, and I can hit divided by, I can click on the total. Now again, where are we going with this? Okay, I'm going to copy this down. I know I am, right? Because I'm going to get the percentage in this category as well, right? But if I copy this down, this is going to go down, right? Let's see. Uh-oh. I have an error. What's wrong? I hit F2 to check it out. E6 divided by E... Oh! It went down too. I don't want that. Okay? I don't want that. So I wanted this to go down, the blue box, but I didn't want the denominator to go down. I wanted it to stick on that. So let me go back up here. I can show you. Again, you can just lock it. Hit F4, and the bottom one you want to be locked, but the top one you don't. So now when I copy this down, you can see exactly what's happening. So it's E6 divided by E7. So this one is divided by E7. This one is divided by E7. This one is divided by E7. But the numerator, the E7, E6, E5, those ones are all relative references. Okay, so it's just looking what's directly to the left of it, and the absolute reference is this particular cell, always this particular cell. Now this is just a proportion, but to turn it into a percent is just a matter of formatting. So I can just highlight these, go to my home ribbon, and this box here, this is the number formatting box right here. Okay, so this is just a general number, but what I want is the percentage. Okay, I can shift it back to general here. I can select percentage here, like that. Okay, and if I wanted to change the number of decimal points, I can increase them. Let me open that like that. I can increase them using the increase decimal button, or decrease them. And what I asked you for in this assignment is to show the hundredths. Now I'll auto size that again because it got big because of all the added decimals, but I just want to present a nice little concise table like that. Okay, so now I'm going to add a title to this table just to type it up here. So I'll type in, now remember, what is this question asking? Going back to the question. Should it be possible for a pregnant woman to obtain a legal abortion if the woman wants it for any reason? Should women be able to have legal abortion for any reason? Okay. And I'm going to make this a little bit easier to read by clicking on the merge cells and then the wrap text button. Okay. So if you, sorry about that, if you're using a wider screen here, you'll see these buttons. You can see the words there if you're using a wider screen. shrink things back there. Okay, so now to add borders, I can just highlight the table here. This is what I want to keep. And there's the border button up here. All borders are already selected, but they're right here. Just click on that. Or I could have clicked on that because it's already selected, all borders. And now my table is complete. Alright, the next step is to make a chart. And what I say here is to highlight, first of all, the percentages for each category. So, let me get back open. So highlight the percentages for each category, and 2, the labels. Okay, so these were the percentages for each category. Well, only 2 categories, category 1, category 2. Only highlight 2 percentages. And now I'm going to hit Control, hold in Control, and I'm going to select these, hold in the mouse, let go of the mouse. Okay, so these 4 cells, that's all that I want in my table. Right? The reason I use the percentages is because I want to use them. They're much more easy to interpret. And now the next step, when I want to create a table of just these 4 cells, is to hit Alt F1. And here's my nice little chart. So I just charted these results here. I can delete that little series thing there because it's not particularly relevant for this example. So here it is. You can hover over this. It tells you that there's 55.61% of people said no. And you can look. That's indeed what's in that cell. And you hover over this, 44.34% said yes. So you can see that more people say that women should not be able to have a legal abortion for any reason than said yes. So if you wanted to add a title for this table, for this chart, you notice that when you click on the chart, a new ribbon appears, right? Chart Tools. Click away, it goes away. Click on it, it's back. So when it's there, you click on Chart Tools, and you go to Layout, Chart Title, and then Above Chart. And what I like doing is I just make sure I'm selected on this, but then up here in the formula bar, I like to make my titles dynamic, so I can use, again, a reference. So the way to do that, these ones are a little different, because you can't just type in the reference. So I'm just going to hit equals, and then I have to click. So what it's basically doing is just telling you that this is in sheet 1. So for some reason it has to add sheet 1. But if you just click on it, you don't have to worry about that. So I clicked on that, it's D2 here, and it's in sheet 1. I hit enter, and now this is linked. Okay. So if I wanted to change anything about this, for, various reasons, for example, like for the homework assignment, that might be a better title if you're using many different reasons. Okay, that would be what you want to do, and you can see that it changes it right there for you for various reasons. And I'll hit Control-Z to undo that, because this one is for any reason. So that's our table there. I'll just slide this up here. I'll try to. Get rid of this. So let's put it down here. Now, the final step, and an important one, is to actually interpret the data in one sentence. Okay, so what is this table telling you? Again, you have to remember what the codebook is telling you. What is the question you typed up here? What are these percentages telling you? We calculated these percentages for a reason. We want to use them. Okay, so we can make a sentence something like, of the 1,248 people who responded to the question, 55.61% said that they think abortion should be legally accessible for any reason. Or some similar explanation, just to make sure that it actually is saying what the information in the codebook is actually saying, and you're actually using these percentages that you used. So, I'm sorry, this should not be legally accessible for any reason. Okay. And I can hit enter to leave it like that, and again, I could ideally you should be typing this into Microsoft Word, but for this particular case, I can just go here and wrap merge. Of the 1,248 people who responded to the question, 55.61% that they think abortion should not be legally accessible for any reason. Okay, and there we are.